Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Katie Gideon, and I will be your on screen facilitator for this. I'm going to call it like a weird weekly social because we're kind of like right smack in the middle of January ending and February beginning. So you can absolutely use your January journal, or if you are just now joining us, you can absolutely use the February journal. We will be able to prompt kind of both sections. But thank you. Welcome. Like I said, I am Katie Gideon. I am dialing in from Edinburgh, Scotland. So it is a little bit later at night, but I absolutely love these socials. I love the weekly setup and I love my time with the Sonder fam. And I want to give a huge shout out to my co-host for the evening, which is Maya, who is dialing in from Colorado. So always enjoy working with Maya. She will be in the chat. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can absolutely reach us in the chat. But if you want to reach out to the larger Sonder fam in the social, make sure your chat is set to everyone. If it is set to just hosts and panelists, that just comes to myself and Maya. And then for some of our newer folks, you can obviously use the Q&A feature down in Zoom, which is what I kind of say the like, if you have the silly question or you think it's a silly question, because there are no silly questions, you can send those in those where Maya and I can answer. So again, welcome. I love seeing all of our returning socialers. I feel like this becomes very much a Saturday night staple. I'm a huge fan of the Saturday night social vibes. It's a different vibe. It's great. It's fantastic. You all are amazing, and we're glad you're here. So if you are new, let us know if this is your first time at a social, if this is your first time at a weekly setup, or if this is your first time at a Saturday social. Love to see all those because, as we always say, it can be a little overwhelming at first, but we're glad that you're here. So you can always have your journal with you, or if you just want to take notes, grab those Post-it notes and you can take notes as you go, but definitely have your phone ready to take screenshots because you're certainly going to be able to kind of get into the rhythm and the flow of how you want to do these socials. So maybe it is you want to be involved in the chat. So you're maybe doing a little less work in your journal, which is okay because no one's grading you. No one's going to show up at your door and demand to see the progress that you've made. Same thing with if I am a little too much for you, you can mute me, you can mute the music, all the things. Don't get overwhelmed. Everyone's got to start from somewhere. And we're just glad that you're setting aside this time for yourself on your self-care journey, wherever that is, however it's starting. This is going to be a great way to spend an hour kind of fulfilling kind of some of that self-care focus. So as always, be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. We always ask that you limit repetitive product and accessory questions. And definitely we will be able to provide the hello@silkandsonder.com link because while Maya and I have some answers to kind of the progress, headquarters is going to be able to take care of more of those customer care inquiries like, where is my journal, billing, kind of all of those things. But we're always happy to help as much as we can. And then, as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So we always like to celebrate the highs, want to provide the extra love and support for the lows. But if you're having a week, a month, or even a year in the song, the theme of the Friends song, and you need to set up some of those mental and kind of emotional boundaries because you're just not ready to address something, that's perfectly fine because we kind of get a little deep, a little uncomfortable. But you have the ability to kind of add those kind of restrictions on yourself because at the end of the day, this shouldn't be a negative trigger. This should be an opportunity to step back and kind of evaluate kind of where you are, where you want to go, and where you want to be. So at the same time, we are always glad here. I love that. Lisa Sparks, your name. I feel like you're going to see kind of the sparks because that I feel like was kind of how I've transitioned through this type of theme. So sparks is going to be a little bit of a theme we've got going on here. So we are still kind of closing out the month of January with that theme of ambition. And it's been, I feel like, a journey. It was one of those, like, ambition was a slightly dirty word to me originally. It was considered someone that was, there was such thing as like being too ambitious, too motivated, those type of things. Whereas I think what we all then realized, at least I did as well, through kind of our mind map discovery and some of those things, is that ambition is a adaptable. Just because ambition, doesn't look the same as 13-year-old Katie thought it was. Ambition is certainly not the same that, 20-something Katie thought it was. Ambition is definitely something different 30-something Katie thinks it is. And the opportunity for ambition to take on this kind of adaptable role for whatever milestone you're in, whatever kind of motivation you need, because it's always going to look a little bit different at milestones. It's going to look little bit different, and it doesn't always have to apply to like professional ambition goals. I think back to kind of some of the best advice that I feel like my mother had was like, I need to kind of get some ambition to get off the couch and do whatever my to-do list looks like that day. So the fact that it can change and alter, I feel like pulls away from that kind of dirty stigma that it is, where it becomes a little bit more tangible and a little bit more adaptable. So I am thrilled that that is kind of now my new relationship with ambition. So with that being said, those were just kind of my thoughts. And I don't want to give any spoilers, but I feel like it is such an elegant segue into our February theme. Because it's one of those, like, you have the kind of big squishy thoughts. And with the February theme, we're going to be able to kind of narrow those down and turn those into kind of actionable items. Because I love taking squishy thoughts and somehow finding a way to turn them into kind of teeny tiny steps forward. So I did put ambition mind map, but we got a little twist on it because, as I said, this is kind of a weird week. And then we're going to be able to do the rosebud thorn, and then we'll move into those weekly setup pages. And as always, for some of those that are newer here, don't worry. I will always be able to go back through and kind of shuffle through the slides as we go. So as soon as I turn off the camera and the music starts playing, let us know if you need to see different slides again. But you'll always have an opportunity to come back to the slides. So don't be stressed if you miss it the first go around. You'll have another opportunity to see it. So normally for the weekly setups, we have this amazing tool called the mind map that we create that gives us an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into each month's theme each week. And they're absolutely unique to the weekly setup. They are not written prompts in your journal. They're something that we create. So we did kind of do the mind map for the 4 different weeks of this month. And then we kind of, we obviously know that there are 5 weeks, but with it being a weird week, we wanted to kind of find a new idea that we can kind of branch into. So if you already have your 4-week mind map, don't worry, this will not mess it up. But also if you're joining us for the first time, you don't have to frantically catch up with 4 weeks that you missed. So while I'm calling this a mind map, it is actually a bonus mind map prompt. So that means you just need to find another blank section in your journal. I actually used one of the scratch pad sections for the weekly spread the week before. So this is kind of, we're going to treat it as a standalone question so that you can find any sort of blank spot in your journal that you can tuck this into. But I feel like it's a way that if you've been with us for the previous weeks for January, this is kind of, again, that kind of transition between the ambition theme of January into our new theme of February. So the mind map question that we're asking, so the first exercise that we're doing, again, not in your journal, find a blank spot, and we're asking ourselves to reflect on our younger self's ambition. Do they guide your path today? How have they changed or stayed the same? And is there personal quality you could cultivate to bring your future closer to those hopes? So here's the example that I have. The prompt is still here. And as I said, here's my example on the scratch pad that I used. And that was, again, if you think of this question, and maybe it's a little trickier to get started, first thing I always recommend is give your permission to just start answering. It can be a brain dump. Just start writing. Don't try to edit your writing. This is your opportunity to kind of put those things down. And so you can always return to the theme of ambition or its synonyms, or if you're working just in your February journal, you can absolutely embrace the February theme. But I also want to say, when we refer to younger self's ambition, remember that there is a number associated with your younger self. This could be any time in your past, because technically, even 24 hours ago, you were younger. So I don't want that to trigger kind of some of those, younger childhood reflections. We don't have to go all the way back. But if that is absolutely something you want to explore, you can. But you also don't need to focus just on kind of the goal-making part of ambition. I feel like that was kind of a very narrow definition that even I got stuck in. You can think in terms of when were you maybe proactive in some of those things. And then you can always choose to focus on changes you made or what qualities you want to continue to focus on as you kind of want to cultivate those changes or acknowledgements that you have. So here we are. kind of starting out getting those kind of creative juices flowing. So I would go back and forth, but at the end of the day, we're reflecting on our younger selves' ambition and how we can kind of carry that forward into either the next month or the next couple months into the 2024. So we'll give you all a chance to work on this. Let us know in the chat, and we will see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing, and please continue to share in the chat. I love reading all of the inspiration, motivation, and kind of the ambition that we had growing up, but then being able to see them turned into kind of tangible actions where I feel like the desire and the want and the aspirations are always there. It just takes on a little bit new form, which is why I have wholeheartedly embraced that ambition is adaptable. Because for me, it was one of those things. I knew my ambition existed. It was more of I just didn't quite know where my kind of baseline grounding or frame of reference. It was like I had all these really great ideas, but how could I turn those into kind of actionable things? How could I turn into the wants and desires into, a career? I feel like it's one of those kind of delicate balances. And I've been very fortunate and very lucky with the opportunities that I have been given to kind of embrace all of those weird, quirky traits that I love, but also why I feel like I've been sitting here. So I know a lot of, if you've been with us the past couple weeks, the questions that we had in the mind maps were a little on the philosophical side and kind of a little bit kind of harder to maybe relate to. But I absolutely loved the opportunity with this kind of bonus week that we were able to kind of personalize and really drill down into how can we make ambition relate to us, and then how can we carry that into the new month of February, the new theme, and continue on our kind of self-care journey. So thank you everyone for sharing. I feel like it's always a magical opportunity to kind of sit and take all of those kind of cool, quirky things that you learned this month and then turn them into those actionable items. So with that being said, another opportunity to reflect, which is our traditional rosebud thorn theme. So if you are in our January journal, that is on page 50. If you're using your February journal, then you're just gonna have to find a blank spot, which you again can use those blank pages or the scratch pad on the weekly spreads. But this is an opportunity to not only, with it being the last week of the month, we can reflect on the month as a whole. So maybe you have a January rose, a January bud, a January thorn, or I love it as the tool to see the roller coaster of the good, the bad, and everything in between for the week that you had. So for the rose, that is something, a highlight, a win, something that made you smile, something that made you happy. And so for me, my rose this week is I absolutely got to feed into all of my hobbies. Monday, I went and saw Shrek the Musical. I love live theater. I get sappy. I get emotional. I love the feelings. Shrek is one of my favorite shows. The music is fantastic. It was everything I wanted, everything I needed. And then I also got to go to because again, avid reader, bookworm, I got to go to one of my favorite author events. She had a talk on Friday night. So I spent Friday night with my other book nerds. So I truly and absolutely fed in my soul the hobbies that I love and adore. And again, it just made me happy. My drama, and then that leads into kind of my bud, which is an emerging opportunity, something you're excited about, something you're looking forward to, or maybe something on the horizon that you don't quite know yet, but you can sort of get excited. It was author was Samantha Shannon. She writes The Bone Season. I highly recommend it. She's kind of a fantastic fantasy writer. They're great stories for a perfect escape. But my bud is my drama class started back up, and we have new people and the same people that were there. It was that kind of welcoming that I was newer last go around. So it's fun to have like another group that isn't work related here. So I found friends when I moved, which is always exciting. And then the thorn is something that maybe was a challenge, something that doesn't go well, something that is taking up unnecessary space in your mind. And so thorn is for me, I kind of had a sore, scratchy throat. I don't know where it's coming from. So nothing major, but it definitely like impacts my jam when it comes to speaking. But I always love the opportunity for a rosebud thorn, because I also use it as kind of a litmus test for like, do I have a hard time finding a rose? Am I having a hard time finding the thorn? Which am I finding quicker? Because maybe that's something I just need to focus on. I dwell in the negative. I live in the things that I don't do right. So when I was working with my therapist, one of my homework a lot of times was I needed to write down something that I did well every single day. That was challenging. So I feel like it's another one of those things, like if you find a struggle to kind of come with a rose, maybe that is where we need to start tracking kind of, you got to celebrate something you did right each day. Maybe that becomes your one thing in the weekly spread. But we always love to celebrate with you on your roses, get excited with you on your buds, as well as provide that extra love and support and caring for those thorns that you're navigating. So throw into the chat those rosebud thorns, and we will see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. I always love getting the insight into your all's lives with the like roller coaster of what your week has been. So always want to be the cheerleader on the sidelines for your roses. Share the excitement and optimism of those buds, but also sending the extra love and support for those thorns as you kind of start to navigate those kind of unknowns. And then I feel like it's another one of those that can always be a little tricky to find roses sometimes. Or Nathania also used it as glimmers. It can be a little tricky to find some of those glimmers each day. So I highly encourage finding an opportunity in the weekly spread to maybe track some of those. But it's also another one of those things that, in the words of one of our other facilitators, Jennifer O, is that sometimes the rose can absolutely just be that it's going to be a new week. That means we get to start anew, we get to start fresh. Or if you haven't quite caught up with the previous week, you still have one more day in your weekend to catch that up. But Rosebud Thorn is absolutely one of my favorite activities to do because you do get to see, because we know that life is the highs and lows and everything in between. So the opportunity to be able to celebrate as well as acknowledge, but then also maybe kind of figure out how can we start, stop, and continue kind of go hand in hand. But I also love kind of sharing these in the weekly setup because it's one of those it's always magical to be with like-minded folks because someone else is maybe in something a little bit similar, or some of the other kind of, as you transition to some of those kind of major milestones, it's always like a little bit nicer to kind of throw that out into the universe and the world, kind of unjudged, unacknowledged in that type of sense. So you get that element of relief, but at the same time, it adds to just kind of the feel good moment of I get to relieve, I get to put it out there and see what goes. But also as just kind of the no judgment zone. So thank you everyone for sharing. We always appreciate it. And now we're going to move into the weekly planner. So again, as we said, a weird week. I am definitely one of those purists that I want January to stay in January, February to stay in February. But do whatever works for you. Like I said, we're going to be able to do both prompts. There is no right or wrong way to journal, because I know jumping back and forth between the two can be a little tricky. But for the weekly spread, if you're in your January journal, this is page 52 and 53. But if you're joining us in the February journal, this is page 26 and 27. And as always, we are big fans of repurposing your journal. And that's where you're kind of turning into what you need, when you need it, and how you want it to look. But if you're kind of just now starting your Silk and Sonder journey with the journal, sometimes it always helps to kind of just go back to the kind of how it is written, how it is so to kind of be done. But I think at the end of the day, what it means is there is no right or wrong way to journal. So just because we're providing these examples in these socials, just because those are examples are being provided in the chat, and just because of the examples I'm identifying is not the right way to do this. And that is where I also think it is magical, is that you can turn it into what you need for that week to accomplish your goals, to accomplish what you need, and the ability to know that just because, this week is going to look very different than a week in August or a week in December. So the ability to have it change and manipulate into what you need. So just because we're using repurposes and ideas doesn't mean you can't use it the way it is absolutely written. So if you need permission to do something a little weird or a little wonky, this is your permission to do it, because we love it, we celebrate it, and we just want you to be able to accomplish what you want to do in whatever form that looks like. So again, we're going to start on the first page, which is again page 52 in your January journal and page 26 in your February journal. The way I approach this, if this week I want to feel, this is the top of the page. So I use this because, again, I've got a science background, so I need baseline. I need to know what my equilibrium is. And so when I get a little lost in my week, I always want to say, how do I want to feel this time next week? That is my end goal. That is what we want to reach. And I'm going to make everything on the page kind of help feed that. This is what I want to feel this time next week. So here are a couple different examples. It can always be, maybe it's a word, maybe it's a phrase, maybe it's multiple words, maybe multiple phrases. Maybe it is you want to feel more something or less something. And then I also feel at the end of the day, maybe it's just like, I want to feel better. I want to feel connected. There is no kind of right or wrong way to do this, but the way I kind of like to frame it, since there's not a whole lot of instructions and it's a big scary blank box, is how do I want to feel this time next week? So I'm going to put on a little short song. So throw into the chat how you want to feel this time next week, and we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. I know, who knew the bassoon was so motivating? But thank you everyone for sharing. What I love reading the chat with this is just the hope and the optimism that everyone has with the week coming. And sometimes it can be a little tricky to narrow it down into a word. I am always a fan of adding ish to it. I want to feel better ish. I want to feel relentless, those type of things, adding the ish. So you can always, it doesn't have to be a real word, but at the same time, it doesn't always have to be a word. It doesn't have to be a phrase. Maybe the sticker is like your jam because it's the happy face and you want to feel happy. It's this type of things. There are no ways to do it, but I at least like to kind of have a grounding point as I kind of navigate my week. So thank you everyone for sharing. So we are still on page 52 in your January journal and page 26 in your February journal. We'll now down the box with the weekly major 3 goals. So what I can always say is it could just be weekly goals. Maybe it's weekly 2 goals, weekly 1 goal, weekly 4 goals. And maybe it's not a weekly major 3 goals. Maybe it's a weekly minor 3 goals. So do not be intimidated by this box because you either can't define major, you don't have 3, or maybe these are just kind of different approaches to goals. The reason I say that it's different approaches to goals is because the way I use this is so I have the way I want to feel this time next week. These are the mental and emotional reminders I kind of need to give myself that if I get a little lost in navigating how I want to feel, I can come back to these. And so some of the examples that are here, again, we got some great motivational stickers out there, so you can always throw those there. The bottom left one was the way they wanted to feel this time next week was calm, centered, and creative. So they latched their 3 goals into those 3 ways they want to feel. So they want a calm mind, a strong and centered body, and creative spirit. We also have folks that have just like, I got a 1 goal, a 2 goal, a 3 goal. Different categories, also popular with the mind, body, heart, or the mind, body, spirit. Same thing with the one in the bottom of this page is that they have a mind, body, and soul goals that ties directly into their weekly to-dos. So again, you don't always have to look at these as independent squares or independent answers. Any opportunity to kind of knit them together, I think is always fantastic. Or maybe you're like, I don't know how I feel about goals. This is where I want to put my morning and evening routine, or this is where I need to put my to-do list because it has lines and the to-do list box doesn't. I also always think of Eat the Frog that Maya always uses. So the frog, fun, and fierce is again another approach. Frog is something you don't want to do but need to do. Fun is the something that you want to do, and the fierce is maybe that added motivation that you need to do. So let us know how you approach your major three goals or minor three goals or major insert number goals. And we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. Love seeing all of the unique approaches to this, or at least the kind of different versions of kind of the similar things. The categories I feel like is always a great way to go. because sometimes it can just be a little tricky of, all the things you want to accomplish, but being able to narrow those down in some sort of kind of organized prioritization, I feel like is key. But at the same time, I feel like it just kind of helps ground what your week is going to look like. And that is how I use it. So now taking the how I want to feel this time next week and the kind of maybe prioritized reminders that we've just given ourselves with this weekly major goals section. We're going to move still again, page 52 in your January journal, page 26 in your February journal. But now we're moving to the left side of the page with the weekly to-dos. And so what I love with the weekly to-dos is they can absolutely be a weekly to-do list. They can be a weekly to-do list. And the difference between the to-do and the to-dos is actually everything is to-done, but it's whether or not you had the little celebration for what you need to do versus what you're excited that you accomplished. But then there are other times where maybe the Eisenhower matrix could be a little bit more beneficial, and that's with the do, decide, delegate, and delete. I was gonna say, I know it's another one of those as I chuckle. I absolutely had to use the Eisenhower matrix for my lighting saga. So I delegated the lack of light bulb changes that needed to happen because I couldn't figure it out. So someone else came and did it. So the opportunity to be able to incorporate the do, decide, delegate, and drop is always great. Or maybe the Pomodoro technique is more your thing. And that's where you have a list of tasks that you want to do. You set a timer, you do those tasks for that amount of time, and then you take a break and then you come back to it. So I feel like it's another one of those opportunities to kind of celebrate and or function. But maybe it's also a combination of a bingo board, maybe it's a ta-da bingo board, those type of things. Or again, what we've seen kind of some popularity is, you have all of these things that you need to do. It's going to be the prioritization of how you want to do them. So that's where the need, want, and hope can come in with the things that you need to do, the things that you want to do, and the things that you kind of hope to do. Because at the end of the day, we all have kind of 24 hours in our day. How we choose to do them can either fall into kind of some guidance from those weekly major 3 goals to the how we want to feel. And so you can kind of knit all of those 3 sections together. Or maybe you're like, to do, to da is not my jam. Maybe it becomes a weekly to be or a checklist, or you're like, actually, I put my to-dos somewhere else, or I use a different format for that. And maybe this is where I track my exercise. Maybe this is where I put my weekly mind map. Maybe this is where I just kind of put, again, a sticker and a motivational quote with the ambition equals passion plus persistence. So again, there are no right or wrong ways to use this weekly to-do section. So let us know, what are your weekly to-dos? Are you team weekly to-do? Are you team weekly to-da? Team bingo, or maybe team need, want, help? And we will see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. Love seeing all the different approaches to this because at the end of the day, it's the things you need to get done so that you can feel the way you want to feel this time next week. But I also love that some people repurpose it. This is where their appointments are, those type of things that you can't quite control. But I think what it also kind of narrows down to is there are so many different tools to kind of help you prioritize how or what things you need to get done that week. So the opportunity to be able to kind of bounce between these different techniques, depending on what your week demands, I think is really great. So, like I said, I'm more of a traditional Tada person because I love to celebrate my success. But there are times where I definitely need to buckle down and do some other things that are things either outside of my skill set or those type of things. So being able to kind of look at the week that I have coming up and what I need to accomplish and being able to start anew with these different things absolutely makes me feel better about how I can feel the way I want to feel this time next week and as well as meet some of those kind of either major goals, minor goals, or back to even the monthly intentions. So thank you everyone for sharing. And then as always, I also feel like, we're those accountability buddies. Definitely come and join us on the weekly setup. So we'll be able to share all of those things because I definitely got stuck in a rut months ago of where I felt like I was carrying the same like 5 things over from week to week. And so being able to reframe it, readjust, made it to where I was able to accomplish those a little bit easier. So we are still on page 52 in your January journal and page 26 in your February journal. This is now at the bottom of the page with the habit and activity tracker. Right off the bat, you're probably like, Katie, what's the difference between, again, the weekly habit and activity tracker and the monthly activity tracker? And that's more of the monthly is something that you want to absolutely do every single day. I translate my habit and activity on the weekly side of what is the reality check. And that's more of I found myself not quite meeting all of these goals that I set for myself because I don't think I was being as realistic with either my workload or what other appointments or what other activities I had. So I feel like this is the way to like add that reality check so that you can continue to pull maybe 2 or 3 of those monthly habits that you want to do every single day. But the other ways you can look at this is again the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for the goal setting. But maybe you don't really want to set goals for these because you just don't quite know what your week's going to look like. So you don't actually have to set a goal. And the same thing is just because there are 5 lines there does not mean you need to have 5 activities. Maybe you only have 3, maybe you only have 2. Maybe it's just that I need to get up at a certain time every day, where I feel like all of us have been in that situation where it's like, as much as I want to thrive this week, I just kind of need to survive. And so another kind of twist on this is maybe these are habits and activities you want to stop. Maybe these are actually more of kind of the self-care kind of squishy reminders on the here's where you want to kind of add that kind of landing point to be kind to yourself, accept yourself, get enough sleep, make sure you're eating kind of the fresh fruits, getting activity. In this particular one at the top, those are here are the activities I'm going to do on specific days. Or sometimes, again, what I always recommend is you have two or three activities that you really want to drill down that are absolutely kind of a little bit vital to kind of your self-care journey. But then I always want to add something fun, something different. Like I said, if you've been with the previous past weeks, I am absolutely bringing back Ann Marget's dancing through the apartment in just a sweater and tights. That is the vibe I'm gonna take into February, and that's what I'm gonna live and and breathe on. So always add something fun, and that can obviously be something as like again, dance like no one's watching, sing like nobody is listening, make a new playlist, all the fun things. But it is also another opportunity to drill down to the start, stop, and continue. And then here, kind of just I'm a big also visual learner too, so I love seeing the idea of if you need something for like the little things we're smiling about. So maybe if you struggled with a rose, maybe one of the habits and activities is just to kind of look for some of those roses. And then I thought this was also a really good kind of to take 3 to 5 minutes to kind of maybe think on what are your 5 gratitudes for the day? What are your plans for the day? Do you have any fears or resentments when you get up in the morning? What are things to watch out for? What are things to strive for? I thought that was another really elegant kind of if you're kind of struggling with what kind of journal prompt you want to carry into the weekly spread for that week, here are some good prompt ideas there. And so let us know what habits and activities are you tracking or how do you approach this? And we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. We are now going to move to the second page, which is page 53 in your January journal and page 27 in your February journal. Again, I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record, but I always lovingly refer to this as the B side. Music is absolutely a big part of my life, so I treat it as the B side of a record, where I don't always use this page because I felt like I was just kind of partially filling it out. getting a little bit of anxious and anxiety around not being able to complete it because I just couldn't quite get into a stride of things that I thought was productive or helpful or things that I just really found of value. So that's why I call it the B side because there are absolutely some gems in there when you need them, when you want it, and you need to listen to it. But for the most part, I put a lot of my time, energy, and effort into the first page that we just did. So with the meal plan, the opportunity to repurpose or use it as a meal plan, but maybe this is where you want to do a daily to-do list. Maybe this is where you track just your meals. Maybe this is again where you put your appointments and your reminders. What we've seen is an opportunity to kind of outline some of those daily journal prompts if you really kind of want to deep dive into some reflections. So someone had turned it into a meal plan for the soul instead of just a meal plan. We have some great affirmations on a daily basis in the Silk and Sonder app. So this is where people track that. Also gives you an opportunity to kind of write and reflect into those apps affirmations. And then someone wanted to feel composed for the way they wanted to feel this time next week. So they added with the how did I show composure today? And so not only do we have the meal plan, but the mind body health plan again is also another option. This is another one of those that gets repurposed. And so this can be a, alliteration section with the Motivation Monday, Talk It Out Tuesday, Walking Wednesday, or some sort of version of that. Another place to maybe this is where you put your journal prompts. What I liked is that someone changed it to mind spirit health plan instead of mind body for whatever journey you're on. I know Nathania has used the self care, the I feel and I need. So I know that's another great kind of way to ask yourself, how are you feeling that day? And what would maybe your mind, body, health, or soul need for that day? Or again, great place for stickers, icons, motivation there. The 7 types of rest is another way to track there. But again, maybe it's not with the how did you care for yourself each day that week. Maybe this is where your kind of unfun chores are, or the reading log opportunity to certainly kind of retrack those. And then that also rolls into, again, the shopping list. Again, an excellent place to repurpose. But to be honest, the shopping list and the meal plans do tend to go hand in hand. So you can absolutely use it as a shopping list. But maybe this is where you celebrate your wins. Maybe this is where your boring things bingo lives. Maybe these are your self-care reminders or your prayer list. Or again, maybe this is where you put your rituals. Or again, great place for a sticker or a read and watch and reflection. Or maybe a don't buy and buy. All those things you can certainly look at. Don't worry, I will scroll back through all of these. I will give you guys some opportunities to work on these, and we will see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. And then obviously the very bottom of that second page, page 53 in your January journal and page 27 in your February journal is the I am loving. It is that opportunity to just write something that makes you happy, makes you smile. I am still loving the fact that if you Google whatever animal you think of and aspiration or aspirational quotes, you get these amazing kind of super cheesy motivational posters, but they make me happy. They make me smile. And so that's been my kind of jam this week. But believe it or not, we have reached the point where it is the end. This is absolutely the fastest hour that I feel like goes by. So as always, we would love to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app. We love using the examples that you all post there. That is why we have these amazing socials. So if you want to, please share your weekly planner in the Silk and Sonder app, those pages. And if you're also looking for added motivation, you will see kind of a flurry of sharing at the end of the weekly setups. So definitely within the next hour, 2 hours, definitely go check out the app so you can get more ideas if you're kind of new to this and figuring it out. Maya is going to start putting these links that are QR codes here. But as always, we love to see the, please fill out the social survey. It includes the what days, times, make sure you include your time zone of when you want socials, what socials you want to see. And then also Maya will include the YouTube link. So if you come late or have to leave early, or there's a day that you just really need a social and you can't make it, that is where all of these live. So not only will you be able to see someone else's perspective, there is no chat, but you'll get the facilitator and the slides. And as always, here's my playlist. I will absolutely include the playlist link in Spotify. So if you definitely need some sort of jam session there, you can certainly follow some of the other Spotify playlists that I have created. And thank you again for joining us on a Saturday night. We are so glad this is absolutely a staple in our weekly with all of our amazing friends here in the Sonder fam. So I hope you have a fantastic Sunday. I hope you have a fantastic week, and we will see you this time next week. Talk to everybody soon. Have a great night. Goodbye.